Hey guys, welcome back to the channel, and today I'm going to be making part 2 of my 3-part series in how to dominate using each role in Marvel Rivals. Now part 1 was about the vanguards, and today's video will be about the duelists. I would recommend, if you haven't seen part 1 yet, to go ahead and watch it. The link will be right here. If there's any other type of Marvel Rivals / gaming content you want to see, go ahead and leave it in the comments and let me know. I am open to playing whatever you guys want. But without further ado, leave a like, subscribe, and let's cue that intro. Alright guys, so before we begin, I'm going to basically be going over the role of a duelist. So, duelists are highly mobile, damage-focused fighters who specialize in isolating key targets, winning 1v1 engagements, and disrupting the enemy backline. Unlike vanguards who control space through sheer presence, duelists can control fights by weaving in and out of combat, striking when the enemy is vulnerable, and escaping before they can even be punished. Their success relies heavily on mechanical skill, positioning, and target prioritization. If you play duelists correctly, you'll be the biggest playmaker on your team, securing key kills and turning the tide of each fight. Alright guys, so your first big tip is going to be about target priority and eliminating the key threats. So as a duelist, your job is to take out high value targets, healers, and DPS heroes before they can impact the fight. You're not here to fight tanks head on. Instead, you want to isolate the weaker opponents and burst them down before they have a chance to react. First, you should focus on the enemy healers. If you eliminate their sustain, your team will win each fight, and it'll help break down the other team when there's no one around to heal them. You also need to be able to punish the out of position enemies. If you notice that there's a stagger, you need to take advantage of that. Duelists excel at diving into vulnerable backlines and securing the quick kills. And you need to know when to disengage. If a fight isn't going your way, don't overcommit. You need to use your mobility to reset and look for another opportunity. My next big tip is on mobility and positioning, and always staying one step ahead of your opponent. Duelists rely on speed and agility to outmaneuver the enemy team. Unlike vanguards, you don't have the health to take sustained damage, so your positioning means everything. You need to be able to stay unpredictable with your movements. Many duelists have movement abilities that let them access spots others cannot, such as a high area or another route that's far off on the map. You need to be able to stay unpredictable with your movements. You also need to be flanking the enemy team. Attacking from unexpected angles puts pressure on their supports and forces them to reposition. And you need to keep track of your escape routes. Always have an exit strategy so you don't get trapped in a losing fight. The last thing you want is to die when no one is around to save you. My next big tip is on how to win your duels in combat. Now, since duelists excel in doing massive amounts of damage, you need to understand how to outplay your opponents. First, you need to know your own combos. Every duelist has a specific ability sequence that maximizes their damage, and you need to practice these over and over to make sure that your fights go as efficiently as possible. You also need to learn how to bait enemy cooldowns. Force enemies to waste their key abilities before committing to a full engagement. If you notice that a Luna Snow has used her ultimate, wait a little bit to see if the support that's with her has used their ult as well. If they haven't, give it a second and wait for her to use it. Then you have your opportunity to strike. You also need to be unpredictable with your attacks. If you attack the same way over and over, good players will start to counter you. So you should start to mix up your approach and your timing. Now, this next tip I used in my Vanguards video, but I'm also going to use it here, and that's map awareness and creating opportunities. Knowing the layout of each map can give you a huge advantage no matter what role you're playing. You need to be using side paths and shortcuts. Duelists thrive on catching enemies off guard, so you need to use alternative routes to avoid detection. You also need to understand the environment. Some maps have interactive elements you can use to your advantage. whether it's breaking destructible walls or using verticality to escape. It's always important to get a good layout of the map that you're on. And most importantly, you need to keep track of health packs. Since you won't always have a healer with you, knowing where to find extra health can be the difference between winning and losing a fight. My next tip is going to be on coordinating attacks with your team. While duelists often work alone, communication with your team is still essential. You need to be calling out targets before you engage them. Let your team know who you're going after so they can support you if you need it. You also need to warn your team about enemy flanks. If you spot an enemy trying to pick off your backline, ping their location so your team can react to them. And you need to sync with your team's ultimate abilities. Most duelists pair extremely well with crowd control ultimates, so wait for your team to set up big plays before trying to make a play on your own. Alright guys, I'm going to give you guys some recaps and some lesser tips that I've thrown in there in order to help you get your mindset ready to play Duelist. So, tip number 1, play smart, not reckless. The biggest mistake Duelist players make is playing too aggressively without thinking ahead. Just because your role is about securing eliminations doesn't mean you should be diving in without a plan. Number 2, be unpredictable. One of the best ways to become a nightmare for your opponent is to keep them guessing. A predictable duelist is easy to counter, but a duelist who constantly mixes up their approach will be impossible to shut down. Tip number 3, master the art of target prioritization. A duelist's main job is to eliminate high value targets. But who should you focus on first? Obviously the healers, and then the DPSs after them. If you're just attacking the first enemy you see, you're not maximizing your impact. Tip number 4, understanding cooldown tracking. The best duelists don't just react to fights, they control them. One of the best ways to gain an advantage in 1v1s and team fights is by keeping track of enemy cooldowns. Tip number 5, knowing when to disengage. Just because you're a duelist doesn't mean you need to tank every fight. In fact, knowing when to back off is just as important as knowing when to engage. Number 6, controlling the tempo of the fight. The best duelists don't just react, they dictate the pace of the battle. By making smart plays, you can control the tempo and keep your enemies off balance. And tip number 7, mindset. Confidence without overconfidence. One of the biggest mental traps duelists fall into is overconfidence. Just because you can win a fight doesn't mean you always should. Remember, confidence is engaging when you have the advantage and knowing you can win. Overconfidence is taking a bad fight just because you think you're better. So in conclusion, duelists are some of the flashiest and most high impact characters in Marvel Rivals. But to truly dominate, you need more than just mechanical skill. You need smart positioning, excellent decision making, and the ability to capitalize on enemy mistakes. If you're able to master these fundamentals, you won't just be dominating your games, but you'll be carrying your team to wins every single game. Alright guys, that's going to do it for me. I hope you liked the video. These strategist videos should come out real soon after this one. But if there's any other type of Marvel Rivals / gaming content you want me to do on this channel, go ahead and let me know in the comments. I'll get to it as soon as I can. But until then, leave a like, subscribe, and I'll catch you in the next one. Peace.